Kind of a bad time for Ubisoft to tout a very strong relationship with Xbox Game Pass. Oh boy, we'll see what they make of themselves coming out of this weekend after announcing the big price increase, but did a video on that yesterday. But let's not bother with that because, yeah, the new hotness that's out there, Xbox Game Pass adds over 90 new games, including 14 Assassin's Creed titles. And to be fair, at least they got like the good Assassin's Creed games. So you got 2, you got 3, you got 4, you got, yeah, 4's DLC. Is Freedom Cry a standalone DLC? I thought it was, maybe it was, but Brotherhood's quite good. And you got those 2D side scrollers from China, India, and Russia. Liberation HD, Revelations. Was that the third of the Ezio trilogy? It might have been. I got the Ezio collection. You got Unity, which I hear is a pretty good game now. But God, man, that was one of the early examples of Ubisoft not exactly being the most optimized studio possible. And in the grand scheme of things, that might have been the match point. That might have been the point in time where they hit the iceberg as a company, and it wasn't until years later, wasn't until, honestly, 2024 before they started to take on way too much water and had to get a bailout. But on top of all of those Assassin's Creed games, you also got, Far Cry 3 and Blood Dragon. Blood Dragon is great. Far Cry Primal, I played a non-insignificant amount of that game. I really like the premise, okay? Being a caveman back in the cut. I probably got to get around to going back and playing that game because I really liked what I played of it. It's just been, God, it's been years since I got around to it. But yeah. Rayman Legends, Skull and Bones, unfortunately. South Park, The Stick of Truth. Some Tom Clancy games, a whole bunch of Ubisoft games, and good ones, not just like, shitty slop that they have put out in recent years. Some games that, if you refresh your memory on them, would remind you that at one point in time, if a game had a Ubisoft logo on it, you would think that it would have a certain level of quality, but that was, God, we're going on like a decade at this point in time, with the likes of, Assassin's Creed Unity, and then Watch Dogs' failed promise, the degradation of all of those Tom Clancy affiliated games. Yeah, it was definitely a rod they made for their own back, and their degradation was slow, but it was very thorough, so much so that last year, no. Last year was the collapse. This year was the Life Raft situation. A week a week or 10 days after the super successful launch where we have 3.5 million players, guys. Trust us, it's a big hit of Assassin's Creed Shadows. They had to effectively gut their company and sell 25% of it to Tencent, and well, that partnership has in fact manifested effective October 1st in the form of taking all of their big IPs and creating a second subsidiary, leaving Ubisoft even more of a shell, a corpse of its former self than it had been in recent years. But yes, Ubisoft's new company officially launches today. Well, October 1st at time of writing, right? But so Ubisoft has officially announced the start of the new company, Vantage Studios, in a release that went up after the first story, and we'll get around to the original text. Ubisoft says that Vantage Studios is the first step of the company's move towards the future. Vantage Studios will take on development and expansion of these brands, building on the foundation of Ubisoft's experience and expertise, sharing services and technical resources, all while giving developers more hands-on control over the games that they are building. The goal of Vantage Studios and of future creative houses is to facilitate stronger and deep connections between developers and players. This streamlined approach allows for both a higher level of autonomy for developers and a shorter pathway between gathering and implementing player feedback, while still offering the benefit of Ubisoft's expertise, services, tools, and tech. Now, there's a couple of things that we'll elaborate on here before we're all said and done, but going back to the original story, plan for the new structure at Ubisoft is to break the company into creative houses. The first creative house is for the new company, and it includes Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six franchises. Yes, the three big IPs that Ubisoft has that Tencent bought 25% of. But yes, in so much as there's an opportunity to grow these new creative houses, Tencent also has an opportunity to buy in an even bigger stake moving forward. Ubisoft IPs will likely be split off within the other creative houses as they are formed. Regarding the new company, Vantage Studios, Tencent holds a 25% stake of the new subsidiary after investing 1.16 billion euros in the spring. Yes, in July, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot announced that Christopher Aderonay and Charlie, his son Guillemot, will serve as the co-CEOs of the new company. As far as what the next steps for the first plan for the new company are, Insider Gaming will have more when it becomes available, because all we have is just simply the announcement of the little production house right now, but it really does. And especially with their illuminating statement, we know that old Ubisoft is about to get gutted fairly extensively. Might take some time, it'll probably take a few years, but more of those IPs, as they start to get either resurrected or released, will eventually be spun off into some Tencent-funded endeavor. If we ever get another Prince of Persia game and it manages to take off, well, guess what? Tencent will find some money, put it in a new creative house at Vantage Studios, and that'll be that. Splinter Cell ever comes back, there's that heavily rumored remake, but there's also an anime that's out there that I gotta get around to talking about because that looks like a total cataclysm. Or any other of those, Tom Clancy games from years gone by, if there's another Ghost Recon that comes through. They ever want to make another Endgame? And no, we're not talking about Avengers here. Or what about The Division? Anybody remembers The Division? Of course you don't. Or what about Watch Dogs? What if Watch Dogs comes back? Rayman? I mean, Ubisoft has... They used to be so great, man, but now they're just simply a shell of their former self, and now it's a Chinese shell of their former self. And honestly, it's kind of like the EA situation, which we'll get to at the end of the day, because, oh god, that just continues to be a barrel of laughs. But their failure, leading to a buyout, probably the best thing for gamers in general. So yeah, for as much as we have to say goodbye to an old friend at this point in time, it's also saying goodbye to an old friend that you haven't really visited in a couple of decades. And when you see their obituary in the newspaper, you might reminisce on some old good times, but at the end of the day, you'll probably just scoff and move on. And maybe make the connection down the road a few years from now that, all right, Vantage Studios, it used to be called Ubisoft. Remember when they tried to make 4A games? Remember how they said that gamers need to get comfortable not owning any of their games? Yeah, that was fun times, huh? Sure worked out well for them, hey? So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.